Most people don't ever truly immerse themselves into the language. It's extremely easy, and you can do it in only a few hours, but people just don't do it. They don't know how. They lack a strategy. And since I have already learned 4 of my 6 languages exactly with this strategy, I consider it pretty tried as a method of immersing yourself. And so I want to share it with you. There are 3 parts to my strategy. First things first, you can't miss out on the boost you get into your immersion when you change all of your devices to the language that you learn in. It looks like such a feeble thing. I mean, you're just changing the language of your phone, your computer, the websites you use, and you think that that would be enough to teach me a language? No, of course it wouldn't teach you a language, but it's such a strong thing when you look at it from the point of your subconscious. Your subconscious sees everything, it listens to everything you hear, and it just absorbs everything passively. So even if you aren't studying, even if you are just scrolling, playing around, you're watching YouTube, you just continuously see all these words in the language you're learning. It's kind of unfair. I mean, it's like you're living in that country. Old folks would just tell you to go into the country of the language that you're learning, and that would help you the most. We are living in the age of internet. We don't need to move to the country. We just change the language of the websites and phones that we daily use, that we look at all the time, and we have the same effect. Maybe even a better effect, since we can just do 2 clicks and we have Translate open and we can just get our translation. And we have the incentive to translate even when we are not studying, simply because we don't understand and need to understand. Though you might get into this thought process that once you have all of your devices and websites changed to the language that you're learning, that you won't be able to use them anymore, because maybe your level just isn't high enough. I'm not going to tell you that your level is definitely high enough to do that, because I don't know, maybe your level really isn't, but you don't care whether there is settings, configuration, or nastavenia. You just see the icon and click on it. Though, since it's so simple that you're only using all these icons and don't ever truly navigate through the text, there is the thought that, is it even useful? I mean, you're not reading anything. Though that's where you're wrong. Your subconscious absorbs passively. And once you actually see the word settings of your language in a book or a vocabulary notebook, and you're trying to memorize the word, you're trying to learn it, it is just so much easier to get it into your brain, because you've already seen it so many times before. That's why it's always the first thing I do when I change to a new language. I change all of my devices, all of my websites that I frequently use, to the language that I'm going to be learning. The reason for that is pretty cringy maybe. During high school, I had changed my phone to German just for the sake of it. I didn't really think much of it. I just thought that it would be cool. And when my classmates saw that my phone was in German, they just stole it like, haha, let's play around, let's change your phone language to another one. And they found out that it was in German, so already too late. They just looked at me like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? And I could feel their respect for me rising, because they learned that I knew German to the level that I could change the language of my phone. Or perhaps because they knew that I was dedicated enough to German to change the language of my phone. And that's another point. When you change your devices, your websites, to your language that you're learning, you can feel this change in your environment. This, in this case, not in the language learning. Of course, you keep picking up the words subconsciously, but For example, in the way your family looks at you. When they come into your room and they see you scrolling through anything, they don't just see you playing around, they see that you have fucking changed the language of the website so that you are learning a language. They see that you are making so much effort into something, and their respect naturally rises for you. Sometimes they start treating you like an alien, though in the good sense, since what sane person would change the language of the device that most people just used for fun, to entertain themselves, to calm their minds, to just have fun, to learn a language? Aliens do. So just become an alien and change your language of the devices and websites as well. Your passive learning just gets a huge bonus, and even if you aren't reading anything actively, you start learning the language much faster. The next thing I always do to immerse myself into the language is to listen to music. It's such an obvious choice. I mean, everyone listens to music, and so it should be easy to find bands that you like and start listening to it in your foreign language. Though there can be some troubles with that. You don't always know which genre of music you like. And when it comes to foreign language music, you don't even know which bands the culture has. And so you come to this point where you're kind of lost. You end up just writing into the YouTube search function Spanish music and hope that you will like something from there, but most of the time you won't. I had this problem with German, because Germans don't really have that many good songs, and I had to stick with rap. And I'm not a huge fan of rap. But anyway, I just stuck with rap, I kept listening to it for 2 weeks. I didn't really like it, but I just forced myself. It was still easier than listening to some podcasts or something. And after those 2 weeks, I just found a band that I liked. The Tottenhausen. On the other hand, with Japanese I had no such problems, because they have such an advanced pop culture that you don't really need to search. The pop culture searches you, and most often it finds you. I mean, if you're into anime, which I was at the time, I just listened to openings and endings. I could sing many of them even, and that really helped with my Japanese progress. However, keep in mind that music is always just something that fills the time that you aren't really learning anything consciously, actively. It's just like water. You need to take in some real nourishment, otherwise the water is useless. Water always only helps you digest those real nourishments and maybe fills your stomach, but it doesn't give you any nutrition. So keep the real nutrition to something difficult, like reading, or in the beginning stage, Duolingo, and music should always stay the water. Since music is such an easy thing to do, you might want to listen to it around the clock. I mean, you can listen to it anywhere and anytime, and today you even have the YouTube function where you just download music, you don't even need to use the Wi-Fi or mobile data. It's kind of broken. You can really listen to it around the clock. But there comes the point where listening to music just becomes too boring. Your mind gets accustomed to it and you start feeling like shit. And that's the point you don't want to ever reach. So be careful and try to limit your music intake. It kind of stimulates your mind too much. Like I said, when I was studying Japanese, I really liked to watch anime, and that's the last part of my immersion strategy. It greatly contributed to my immersion, but only to a certain point. You can watch movies, or in the case of Japanese anime, maybe even Chinese have something like that, but you again need to limit yourself. Since once you watch too much, and since each of the movies or anime stimulates your mind, you start again feeling terribly. And you won't feel like doing anything productive when in that state. So you need to find a threshold that each time you reach, for example, 2 hours of watching movies or anime, and then quit. Stop it, cut it off, and try something difficult again. Read some books, reset your mind, and only then again continue with the movie watching, or maybe continue listening to music, whatever you find more comfortable. But make sure you don't get into the pit where you don't feel like doing anything productive. That's the place you don't want to be. The real nutrition, reading, is more helpful anyway. I mean, you can watch movies and listen to music until the end of time, and you probably will learn a language, but not as many as you could in the possibly shortest amount of time. That's what you can do with reading. Though reading is difficult, and this is an easy immersion strategy. You really need to be careful of this overstimulation. You can do it in both cases, both by reading too much, though in that case it's not by having too much fun or enjoying it too much like with music, but because you force your mind to work too much. And you can overstimulate your mind by watching movies and listening to music as well, simply because of the happiness you get. In the case of reading books, I once spent 2 weeks, like whole 2 weeks, doing nothing but laying on my bed and reading books. These 4 Hobbit books you can see are the books that I read during that time. They're in German, and I was kind of preparing for this one test. It was for B2, I think. During its start I was at B1, and during its end, the end of the 2 weeks, I was at B2, high B2. I could probably pass a C1 test as well. So this huge boost from reading. Though I burned myself out. Afterwards I spent 3 months recuperating. No one really believed it, because you read books, what the fuck? Why should you be bothered with recuperating? That's what people who went to war do. But no, I just spent too much time working in this case. The other way to burn yourself out, that happens to me and probably to you many times already. You just watch too many animes, too many movies, listen to too much music, maybe drank some alcohol, and you were really happy at that point, but afterwards too happy and ended up in something like a depression. You don't want to get into either of those 2 states, so maybe try to find a balance between them, like read and listen to music, watch movies as well, because that's what I do. Though one day I aspire to do nothing but read books. Read books and maybe translate some parts of them to get some vocabulary each day. Because I believe that once I habituate to this thing, to reading books, I should be able to do it without ever burning out. So both of us, let's keep in mind that our minds are the boxes that are keeping all our vocabulary and all the grammar in place. And once those boxes crack, be it from anything, we get leaks. Let's keep looking at overstimulation as an enemy.